Hi everyone, it's Nicole Spohr and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm super excited to be sharing a new trio of cards featuring brand new products from the Simon Says stamp Love You To January 2021 release. These are bold backgrounds with bold florals. Really beautiful new products that can be used in a variety of ways. I chose to create cards that can be for lots of different occasions, not just Valentine's Day or love theme. We're going to start with this XOXO background, which of course is perfect for Valentine's Day or any type of love occasion, but it also is just a really nice background. And so I'm going to be using this on 2 of the 3 cards today as a really nice subtle design in the background of our card. On this first one, I'm stamping it on Simon Says stamp Fog Gray cardstock. This is a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch panel of cardstock, and I'm stamping the design with clear embossing ink and heat embossing with white embossing powder. This is actually beautiful on its own, and really you could just add a fun little sentiment or maybe a heart or two, and I think this would be a fantastic Valentine's type of card. But it also works great just as a decorative element for a background, which you're going to see here as I'm going to turn this into a friendship type of card where the sentiment's going to be thank you for being a friend. And I just have to take a side note here. Does anyone else see that sentiment and the theme from the Golden Girls go in your head, or is it just me? I've thought this the whole time since I got this die in the mail. I don't know. It might just be me. That's okay too. Anyway, we're going to take the Best Friend Ever stamp set, and I am going to stamp this beautiful floral cluster twice on smooth white cardstock using Hero Art's intensified black ink. This is a great ink for Copic coloring, and I'm of course going to color both of these in with Copic markers. I have listed the marker colors across the top of the screen for easy reference, plus I've also listed them by this particular project on my blog post. You can find a link to that in the description box below the video. I'm using our 30, 32, and 35 for the flowers, and G00, 2, and 9 for the leaves. So these leaves are going to be a little bit more of what I call mint color. I like this color combination, and in addition to the mint color combination, we are going to use more of a limey green color combination with YG 21, 25, and 17. So there's a little bit of both in here for variety. I love these florals, and I think they're just so super pretty. There's 4 different flowers. This is from a 6x8 stamp set, and it actually comes with sentiments as well. I didn't use the sentiments from this stamp set, but you definitely could. I kind of pulled from lots of different sets for my cards today just to kind of share lots of things you can do with them, but definitely you can do similar things with products you might already have on hand at home. I zoomed in a little bit, so hopefully you can see the coloring just a little bit better. I'm also not going to color all of these on camera, I don't believe. I did try to cut some of this out and speed some of this up to save a little time because there is quite a lot of coloring for each of these cards. One thing to keep in mind, so I am only stamping, especially these first 2 cards, because I used the same stamp set for both. I'm using a different floral stamp set from the Love You To release for the 3rd card. I'm stamping the floral clusters twice, and that goes for both the 1st and the 2nd card. But you'll notice on the finished card, it really looks like there's a lot more. And the reason is I am positioning these clusters along edges of the card and then trimming away the excess and then that excess is going to actually be layered around the edge, the perimeter of the card design, to make it look a little bit more full. It's one of my favorite tips and hacks for using all those little bits and pieces. So we're coloring the whole thing in, and normally you might cut it off and throw it away, but now you can use it and you don't actually have to stamp anything extra. So it's really one of my favorite little tips for how to make the most of your images, especially if you're doing a design like this. These are so pretty, and again, the flowers, the backgrounds, you could turn these into all kinds of cards. Definitely does not have to be, in this case, I did a friendship greeting. You could easily replace that with a love-themed greeting, a birthday greeting, anniversary greeting, all kinds of things. So keep that in mind. I really have been enjoying coming up with card ideas and designs that work for many different themes and occasions with the same design. Kind of eliminates some of that, what should I do with the, do I have to come up with a whole new card idea? And you definitely don't have to do that. And I know for myself personally, I can really only send out so many love and Valentine's cards every year. So I like to find ways to take Valentine's themed product and turn it into a card that I can use for more of an everyday type of occasion. We're going to line up the coordinating die and die cut this floral shape. And keep in mind, we're going to do this for both flowers. So there's what that first one looks like. I love this kind of peachy pink color combination. Here is that thank you for being a friend sentiment. It's really awesome because it actually is all connected. So it's going to pop out as one, and it makes it really easy to line up that way. So let's go ahead and color the other flower off camera, die cut that, and then we're going to die cut our sentiment, the thank you for being a friend, from silver holographic cardstock and white cardstock. We're going to glue the silver holographic cardstock on top of the white one. That's just going to give it a little bit more stability and a little more dimension. And then we're going to figure out how we want to position the flowers and the sentiment on our card front. So I'm going to start with putting a little glue on the back of my sentiment. All of my sentiments today are big, bold sentiments, and all of the new product I'm using, I'm really not using a ton of older or previously released product. Everything but the sentiment on the last card is from the Love You 2 release. The sentiment on the last card is from the Love You release from December. So it's also very new. Okay, I'm liking that kind of placement for the sentiment. So now we're going to figure out placement for our flowers, and I want it to slightly overlap in a couple little places. And then carefully, we're going to trim the excess and kind of grab that and play around with our placement until we get something we like. I was originally going to put it up a little higher, and I ultimately decided I did not like that as much. I like it to be a little bit more floral heavy along the bottom edge. So we'll move that, and then we're just going to trim off all of the excess. I did leave it there for a minute, but I am going to move that down. And I have lots of other little bits and pieces. I can fit maybe a couple more little things here and there. I think like we'll put this little flower. I believe I put it along the bottom edge. And then there's another really teeny tiny little piece I'm going to put up near the top. and there is hardly any waste this way, which is one of my favorite things to do. Once we kind of have everything positioned like we want, it is time for finishing details. In this case, I'd like to stamp an additional little phrase to go with my die cut sentiment. I love the look of a die cut sentiment and a sentiment strip. And then very simple embellishing with some little flat sequins from a new sequin mix from this Love You To release. That'll be the final thing we do, and that's just going to add a little bit more glitz, I guess, to our card. Very subtle. And here are those little sequins that I'm just adding. I've laid them out, and so I'm picking them up with an embellishment wand or a crystal katana, and then I'm adding a little dab of glue and popping them back down in place. As for the rest of the sentiment for our card design, we're going to stamp that on some smooth white cardstock using a greeting from the Inside Friendship Messages. This is a 6x8 stamp set that is fantastic. I love this stamp set. We're going to stamp Just Thinking About You Makes Me Smile using Simon Says Stamp Smoke Gray ink. And then we're going to die cut this with my favorite Sentiment Labels dies from Simon Says Stamp. We're going to trim one edge, flip it around and trim the other, and then we're going to pop this up with a little foam adhesive right underneath the die cut sentiment, overlapping the florals, and place this on a white top fold card base to finish the card design. Beautiful floral cards. Florals are always a good idea, I think, and this just turns out so fun. For the second card, I'm again using a floral from that same Best Friend Ever stamp set. We're using a different floral this time. We're stamping it twice, just like we did before. I'm going to color this one a little different because I did stamp and emboss my background off camera. This background is using, let me get the exact name of this, the Radiating Hearts background. I love this background. In fact, I love all the backgrounds that were released in this Love You To release. So good. But the background is blue, and I'm heat embossing the Radiating Hearts on the blue with white embossing powder. So I decided to color the flowers in with shades of blue using B01, B05, B06, and then for the leaves, YG 21, 25, and 17. I'm going to color just a little bit of this on camera, and then just like before, we'll color the rest off camera to save a little time. I am using some yellow markers just in the center of those flowers, and I will show coloring in those flower petals again with B01 out on the outer edge of the petal, and then B06 and 5 coming out, kind of flicking or feathering out from the center, and then going back with B01 to smooth out those edges just a little bit. Once we have all of that, we're going to use the coordinating dies to die cut these floral clusters. And just like before, we're going to create a background with just these two clusters and a large die cut sentiment. This one is You Are Simply the Best. I'm not using the shadow for this. This one does come with a shadow. I'm just going to use the sentiment die cut from the holographic cardstock and white cardstock to give it a little bit more dimension. Just like before, 2 floral clusters are going to be used to fill in the perimeter of the card design, or the majority of the perimeter, and little bits and pieces of leaves will be tucked here and there that I have trimmed off, but I'm using most everything again to get the most bang for my buck out of all of the little bits and pieces. Just adding a little glue onto the back of this die cut. And then going to adhere this in place. Again, a little sentiment strip is going to be stamped. This time with a blue ink. I'm going to use Simon Says Stamp Island Blue ink to stamp my phrase, "Thank you for your friendship." So it's, "You are simply the best. Thank you for your friendship." I like this a lot. I think it could be used for a lot of different occasions. And I really wanted to use all those little leaf pieces. I like the little greenery all the way around, so I made sure to fill in lots of areas with all of those. Even along the top edge, kind of balances it out a little bit better. And something that I did for all of these cards, and it's something I've talked about a lot in recent videos, is my ink color choice for those stamped phrases. You will notice that all of them are a colorful ink and not a black ink. That was very much on purpose. I wanted it to kind of flow with the design of the card a little bit better, so I picked a gray ink for the first card, a blue ink for this one, and I'll pick a red ink for the final card. I'll also use that same sequin mix, the little white flat sequins from that, to adorn the card design to give it a little bit added interest. When adhering sentiment strips to cards, I will often use a T-square ruler just to help me line it up a little bit better. I try to just eyeball it, and a lot of times I find it slightly skewed, which always ends up bothering me. So I placed it down and I just felt like I could not get it lined up. So I'm going to grab my T-square ruler. I'm going to use my tweezers and just line that up just like that. Perfect. And then I can grab my little sequins. I put them in a little dish here to help hold on to them and pop those in place. Now for the third card, I opted to just use a different floral stamp set. There are still 2 unused floral stamps from the stamp set I used first, but I just really loved the roses from the Sweet Friend stamp set, and so I opted to use it instead. It's a little bit different because the components are all separate, meaning it's not going to be in a floral cluster, and it does take maybe a little bit more work because you have to die cut so many different little bits and pieces. But I think it was worth it because these roses are beautiful. I stamped multiple roses, leaves, and stems, and I'm coloring in the roses with R35, 46, and 39, and the stems and leaves with G00, 02, and 09. Originally, I did color in this stem for whatever reason. I don't know what I was thinking. I colored it in with brown. So ignore that because I did stamp it again and color it in correctly. I blame it on I was watching a show while I was stamping and coloring, and that might have been not the best idea because sometimes I get distracted. These roses are beautiful, and out of all the cards I'm sharing today, this one I think is definitely more Valentine's-y, love themed, just because especially the color combination. I have a pink background with white embossed XOXO and then the red roses on top. I love the pink and red for Valentine's Day, and it just is a really fun card. Nothing on it says Valentine's Day. I could always stamp a Valentine's greeting inside if I wanted to. but it could work for other occasions as well if you don't, have that Valentine's greeting on there. We're doing the mint colored leaves again with G002 and 9. But that deep, dark, pretty red rose, oh, I just love it. This one is not going to have as much in the way of repurposing bits and pieces. I will repurpose a little edge of a rose and a little tip of a leaf up high just to kind of give a little color up at the top of the card. But for the most part, most of what's going on this card is along the bottom edge, and I've shifted the sentiment, the die cut sentiment, up just a little bit. It's probably about where it would be for the other cards, quite frankly, but with not as much flowers along the top edge, it doesn't really look like it. Just such pretty, beautiful florals in this release. I started with my dark color and then kind of shaded out with my mid-tone, and then along the very tips of the petals with my lightest color, and then I would go back in with my darker markers as needed to add additional shading. As I mentioned, I used the XOXO Background stamp, this time on Hero Art's Peony cardstock. I think it would have looked just as pretty with the Radiating hearts as well. And then I played around with the placement of my flowers quite a bit. I couldn't decide how I wanted to do them. I really kind of wanted to originally try to do something similar to the first two cards, but that just wasn't working out. And once I kind of shifted everything, centered it so that the stem coming up with the two flowers was in the center, and then I just built out from there, I really liked how it worked. We'll go ahead and glue our sentiments one on another, adhere those to our background. The Spellbinder's Tool-in-One comes in so handy when you need to pop out all those little bits and pieces. Let's go ahead and trim those off. So we can use just a little bit up here at the top. Isn't that red and pink so pretty? Just really love how this turned out. And then I wanted to use this little bit of a leaf, and I ended up putting it down near the bottom, which I like. We'll use the same sentiment stamp set as before to stamp Sending Lots of Hugs with some red ink. I'm using an acrylic block to help hold everything nice and flat. I've got my card base here. I can go ahead and pop this in place. And then we'll clean up these stamps, move those out of the way so that I can stamp Sending Lots of Hugs with Simon Says Stamp Lipstick Red ink. Just like before, we're going to die cut this sentiment with a Simon Says Stamp Sentiment Labels die. It's one of my most used dies or die collections in my stash. I love a good sentiment strip set. Gives your sentiment strips a professional look. You by no means need to have one. You can trim it with your paper trimmer very easily. Then we're going to pop that up. We will use a T-square ruler again to get that nice and straight. And then finishing details today are going to be adding a little something to the back of each of our cards and a little something to the flaps of our envelopes. So there is a new stamp set in this Love You To release that I think is super fun. It has a bunch of very funny, kind of snarky type of sentiments in it that are just very unique. I like that kind of thing, and I know that I have some friends that would really enjoy that. Plus, I think it's just really neat to add a little something to envelopes. I don't do it all the time, but I do really, really like it. And I always want to remind myself to do it more because when I do decorate my envelopes, I totally love it. So there are my cards. Let's go ahead and take some sentiments from the Sassy Flaps stamp set, and we're going to stamp the back flaps of all of our envelopes with the "no licking was involved when sealing this envelope." And this is true with the Simon Says stamp envelopes. They have a little adhesive backing that you just peel off and press down to close, which I totally love. We're going to just stamp these here, changing out the ink color for each to match the card. And then we will be stamping the back of each card with another little snarky, punny phrase. So let's get that last envelope done because I liked them so much that I switched them out for each card. You definitely could just use the same one for all three if you want to. So the first one I'm going to stamp is the gray and peach flowers card, and we're going to use "Yes, I made this. Impressive. Am I right?" Which I think is hilarious. Then we're going to stamp the blue background on the blue card. We're going to use that Island Blue ink. And we're going to stamp this card. Cost 10 times more than a store-bought one because hashtag only the best for you. Again, I think that's hilarious. And it just gives such a nice personalized touch. I always stamp "Made by Nichol" on the back of my cards or something similar. And I can just stamp that right above that, this little phrase. I just think it decorates it so fun. When the recipient turns it over, it's just kind of something cute. On our final pink and red card, it's going to be stamped with "If you only knew how many hours went into this." And then in parentheses, "pretty sure you'd think twice about tossing it." So really, really cute and funny. I think that's a fantastic stamp set. That is going to finish up this trio of bold flowers and backgrounds cards featuring new products from the Simon Says Stamp Love You To release. Released on January 15th, 2021. The supplies I used to create my cards are listed and linked below the video here on YouTube. Here is another video featuring Simon Says Stamp products that you might be interested in. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe to my channel and hit that notification bell so that you never miss a new card making or paper crafting video. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me today, and we'll catch you next time.